Hey everybody, Caleb here, and today I've got this 1958 Gibson LG1. It is in not very good a shape. You might be able to see there that the neck around the top has started coming in. This isn't too dissimilar from a Guild I did not very long ago. I think the problems are a little bit different though. This one has a loose brace on the inside, just flopping around in there. So we'll go ahead and set this down. I'm not real sure what's going to be the plan of attack on this until I get a real good look on the inside. But first we got to take the strings off of it to get to that point. So let's get going. I'm just going to go ahead and cut these strings. They're mighty old and in need of replacing. Well, I already saw some movement in the neck there, so that tells me that the string tension was part of the problem. Yeah, that moves almost freely. We'll go ahead and pull those strings the rest of the way off of there. I seem to be missing a bridge pin. I'm not sure if it's going to be floating around in the box this came in, or if it's actually missing, so I'll have to maybe look into that a little bit. I haven't looked at anything really beyond this break here, so I'm not sure what else this is going to need. You know, I should take a look at the bridge to make sure it's still looking good. The body actually seems to be in really good shape besides the obvious break. And it's a little bit dusty. I think I'm gonna just real quickly Alright, so we can really start looking at this thing now. That saddle's in there pretty tight. That's good. That bridge actually looks like solid to that back. Maybe a hair bit of lift, but it does not look bad at all. Well, I said that, and now there's a little bit of lift in the middle here. It's not terrible, though. The part that usually comes up first, the edges, is stuck down very well. I'd say that's probably doing fine, really. That's good news. So there is a brace floating around on the inside here. And I suspect this brace is the one that goes about here. You can probably see that this thing didn't really rip off of there. My guess is the glue just came undone. This guitar came to me from Florida, where it is very humid, and I imagine that had a major portion in loosening this brace. So my guess as to what happened here was this brace came loose, came off, and then that allowed this neck to pull in like it is. So that's why this can move so freely, is it was really all that brace holding it in, and now it's not, so it's just moving where it wants to go. So on an X-braced guitar, which this is not, this is a ladder-braced guitar, which means it's just got braces running this way. There's another flat brace that runs up here that this is lacking. So this is the only brace that goes up here. So it's not a real big surprise then that this is busted in this way. The last one I did, the Guild 12 string, I had to take the back off of because the bracing up here had not just popped off and I wasn't really sure what was going on. This one is a little more obvious that you can see here. Well, I don't know if you can see that. I can see it pretty clearly. Maybe if I try this side. The top is come loose from the block there, where the block is all in the middle section, and the top is totally loose from it. So I can probably coerce this back to where it belongs from the outside. I'm hoping I can get this back together without having to take the back off of it. I guess I ought to check to see if we have any other loose bracing. If we have a lot of loose bracing, I may end up taking it apart anyway. Doesn't seem like it. It just seems to be this one. I'm going to do a quick internal inspection and see what I can see. This never works really good for camera because you can't see what I can see. But just looking on the inside here. Bridge plate is in fairly good condition. It's the kind of bridge plate that goes from side to side, and it's a softwood, probably the same spruce as the top. It looks good in the lower bout. Now I can actually get a good look at what's going on in here. And yeah, there's a really clear line where this brace was. I'm probably going to need to stick a block in there with some sandpaper and knock off some old glue. Yeah, the block does extend out into this area that the top that's not broken, but it is totally loose from that section. Yeah, it moves, so that might be helpful if I can get this pulled back properly to get that all glued down and hold stable. That's probably good. I'm thinking it might also be advantageous to actually make a flat brace just to go across this crack now that it's already happened. May not be a bad idea. Otherwise, I think this is in pretty good shape. For the sake of argument, it's not terrible. Checking the just the bulge that's in the neck, or in the neck, the bulge that's in the body. It's not terrible. Fretwork could use a little bit of work. We could clean that fretboard up quite a bit as well. I don't want to scrape any color off of those dots, though. They're kind of yellow. I think that's good, authentic wear. The whole thing is a little bit grimy, dusty. It could use a good cleaning to some degree, so I think I'll think about that shortly after we get this glued back up. I'm kind of putting off really stressing this. But I think that's really all I'm going to end up doing is just kind of real carefully pulling that back up. I think if I can make sure that that plastic is all the way loose. Oh, well, there's a piece there that I may as well take out. I can put that back in. I noticed there are a couple of loose pieces. I think this plastic, when it warped, broke a couple of pieces in front of it out. So I'd like to take those out so they're out of my way. And not lose them, preferably. So I take out those two pieces that the plastic broke when it moved. And the plastic being separated, I think it's all the way separated on this side. Yes. It's going to take probably some heat to get that back into the proper shape. But that should let me move this fairly unencumbered. Well, it should have. Unless we're having problems with more plastics. I suspect this binding is the issue. No, she seems to be free. All right. This may require a slightly different plan of action, so let me think about what I want to do here, and then we'll go from there. So right now, I've got a spool clamp in there, pressing on the blocks, the neck block and the tail block. And that has gotten me a whole lot closer, and nice and evenly too. So like, you know, I don't have to go by eye trying to put the right amount of pressure on there. You can see that's almost perfect. That's cool. What I think I'm actually going to do on top of this is put a bar on the neck here that sits then long enough onto the bridge. So I'll take the saddle out, and then we'll put a piece of wood that runs all the way across here, and that'll put a little bit more tension pulling that neck back down, and I think we should be able to get it almost perfectly lined up then. I hope. So that's my next idea. The spool clamp worked really well. I just had to tape a bunch of the ends together to make it long enough to fit, because the hole's not big enough to fit something long enough to span the whole body in at once. So I had to put it in 3 pieces. The actual end here, the piece of all thread, and then the end on the other end. I had to go in all 3 different pieces, and then I had to put it together inside the hole. It was not the most fun activity, but I got it done, and I think it is going to end up being a really good thing. I think the bar putting some more pressure on it'd be the neck angle actually is a good idea, because I think that's all that we're lacking. We're actually maybe a hair low yet on this front edge, and putting that little bit of neck angle pressure is exactly what I think we're going to need to get this pulled back up to where it needs to be. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'll go find my usual board I use for that and get it all set up, and we'll look at what that looks like. So I've got this all clamped up, and I'm liking the way it's looking. The thing it's needing is some glue now, I think. I've got this board running down the frets. It's clamped here, and then one more right up here you can't see, but that'll keep it level to the frets. And then I've got it wedged at the bridge to take it back just a little bit more. And that's actually getting it lined up really well. It looks like really flat across the cracks. So that's really cool. I really like that. It also lines up really well up here. You could almost not tell that it was broke there at the binding anymore. Once again, really cool. I like that. The problem is I can't get any glue in from the clamped up stage. So I'm going to have to at least loosen these clamps to get some glue in there, and then put it back on there, and then we should be good to go. I think that's going to work just fine. I'll probably end up putting a couple of like little squeeze clamps here and on the other side to make sure that everything is kind of lined up well, and maybe a couple of little spool clamps on the edges just to make sure that we're pressed into the block the best we can be. But I think we're basically good to go. So I'm going to pull these wedges out and pull these clamps off. I'm also using this wedge to keep the binding, the rosette out of the way. It was just going to be in the way of me gluing up, so give me some range of motion here. Like we can get some glue in there now. So I'm gonna kind of pull up on this. It is going in there. So that's good. Try the other side now. right, I think we're actually looking good. Yeah, that's gonna be good. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that bar back on. Yeah, that's looking good. I actually think maybe I've gone too far. No, it's looking good. Alright, give me some spool clamps or maybe some long clamps to do. So what I'm doing with this is clamping the top back down to the block. All right, so I've got this cross clamp going through. It's putting a little pressure in from this way, but more importantly, it was giving me a little more downward pressure with these wedges and these blocks in the middle. That's what I really needed more than that sideways pull. I think this is going to work pretty well. It's looking pretty good from what I can see. I'll give this plenty of time to dry up. After that's done, we can put this brace back in. We should be able to do that from the outside, no problem. And I think we're going to be really, really doing good here. So this set up well overnight into actually it's set up well, over about 2 days. I wanted to make sure we had plenty of time to get this to dry, and it is looking really good from what I can see. These plastics are not looking great, and I'm still missing these 2 pieces, but this has made this circle a circle again. And it's lining up fairly well on the ends. This still needs the binding reattached because it's still loose on this side. This side, it seems like it stuck back down, maybe with some of the wood glue, but this side still needs a little bit of work. Not that big of a deal, but I think we're ready to move on, and it's looking pretty good. So I can start taking this clamp off now. And it's not going to come out in one piece, so I'm going to have to take it apart inside. Now that I don't have this clamped up, the only thing that's holding this in shape is the glue on the top. So there's not a whole lot of structure there, and I don't really want to go breaking this loose again. So I've got to be kind of careful with what I'm doing. Now that we've got the clamps out of there. Now, on the inside, this brace, this one here, is going to go back about here. But, seeing as that's the only brace up there, I'm thinking about, I say there, it actually goes about there. Just barely in front of that sound hole. I'm thinking about putting in a flat brace that runs just like this to help reinforce that area since we've already had the break. It wouldn't be uncommon to maybe put a cleat in, but I think I'd rather put a longer, maybe it doesn't have to be the full length, doesn't have to butt up against the edges, but a longer flat brace out of some nice soft wood, just like this, to help reinforce this area. Now this guitar is ladder braced, so all of the braces are just like this orientation. In an X-braced guitar, where they're X'd across here, you'll have a brace up here just like this, and a flat brace in front of that. These ladder braced guitars, or this ladder braced guitar, doesn't have a flat brace up top. I'm thinking about putting one in just to reinforce this break that we've had. I don't think it's going to hurt the tone any, and because this is already a stiff area from the fretboard, so I think we're going to be doing good with that. The thing is, now we get to pick out the piece of wood we want to use. So this is all brace wood, soft spruce of some kind. So I've got to go through here and find a piece that looks like it'll be good for what I want to do and about the right thickness. I don't want it to be super thick. That's why I'm saying I want to do a flat brace. But I get to flip through here and pick out some some pieces. I'm thinking something not too dissimilar from this, probably a little bit thinner. So then maybe a little bit closer to this. That only stretches maybe about that long. And considerably thinner than this is. So that's probably not a bad choice. But I'll flip through here and make sure there's nothing else that I want to use for this. So I went ahead and cut this out. This is that piece that I thought I was going to use, and it's looking pretty good. This is now thinned down to about 100,000ths of an inch, which is about the same thickness as the top, with some variance. It's also about the same thickness as the bridge plate, which is pretty much what I was aiming for. The thing is, though, this is still kind of bulky, and I want to take off some of the bulk that's not really going to do me any help. So I've got my little plane out, and I'm just going to round the edges off to start off with. I could do for maybe a slightly lighter cut. Just rounding that edge off so I don't have as much bulk on that side, because I don't need it. It's not going to do me a lot of good, and it's just going to make the whole thing a little stiffer. So we're trying to make this flexible but still strong. I want to bevel that over basically all the way to nothing, so it goes the whole way. You know, I get a nice edge all the way to the end. That's looking really good, actually. We'll do a little bit more work on this side. And I'm just going to do the slightest amount of actual work on the top to kind of give it a rounded idea. So it's tallest in the middle and bevels out towards the edges. So that worked pretty good. This was not the side I thicknessed off of. This was, so you can probably see the color difference there. This one's really white. This one's still pretty yellow, except for where I've started carving. So I can kind of keep track of, you know, where I've been working towards the center as I get thinner by the surface. So it works pretty good for that. I think we're doing pretty good. We've really rounded these edges off. What I'm probably going to do is just do like a light scraping to smooth it out. And then I'm not quite done. I want to put a bevel on the ends of these so they bevel out to just finally take off a little bit more bulk. Based off of the bevel on the braces, I only want to do maybe about half of that. And that ought to be good. So I'll just take that back over to the to the thickness sander and get it real close and just bevel it. That'll be really good for this. That'll just put that nice edges on there, and then I think we're going to be in really, really good shape. So we can go ahead and start gluing internal bracing back into the guitar. So, I've got this thing all shaped now. This brace that's going to go in there. Right now I've actually got my phone in there with a light acting as a mirror so I can see on the inside. I'm going to go ahead and glue this thing in there. I think we're ready to do that. Let me get a little bit of glue to spread on there. I've got some clamps ready and a caul ready to help press everything in. All we need to do is apply some glue. Get it spread pretty well. I have test fitted in there so I know it's going to fit. I also marked the center on the face that I'm going to be able to see so I can get it aligned well. All that's left to do is to actually do it. And we seem to be working here, so let me get set up to get that thing put in there. Get this in there without getting the glue everywhere. And actually, I could come here this way. Right there looks really good. So I'll kind of press it. Now I'm going to stick my caul in the first clamp on. Okay, that one's too long to fit in the middle. All right, so that ought to do good. I'm using these lighter weight clamps because I don't want to put a whole lot of pressure on that top that I just glued back up. But with that caul, that ought to even out the pressure, and we ought to get a good glue off of this. I hope, and that should help reinforce this whole thing to stay together just a little bit better. So we'll let that dry for a couple of hours to make sure it's good, and then we'll glue this brace back in. This has had plenty of time to set up. So I'm going through now and I'm actually cleaning up the bottom of this brace. So hopefully we can glue that back in. I just grabbed my chisel and real quickly ran this across here and it took off all of that extra stuff. So that came out really clean really quickly. All I have to do now is grab what I'm going to do is grab a block and a little bit of the sandpaper and clean off the top and the inside so that we'll have a nice clean surface to get this all glued to. This is going to work out really well, I think. So I've got this little bit of sandpaper on my block here, and I'm just going to basically stick that on the inside. Just try to make sure we've got the surface clean where that brace goes. All right, so I got that cleaned up. The brace is ready to go. I think we're just about ready to glue this back in here. I'm a little, just a little bit nervous, just making sure this is going to turn out as good as I can get it. So we're going to spread some glue on there. I did go ahead and mark the top with pencil in the center so I can make sure that it's lined up. If it gets pulled back as basically as far as it can go, it should be lined up perfectly as long as it's not crooked or anything. But, I just want it to be as good as I can get it. Now comes the fun part. Let's see if I can't get the mirror in there to help me. I can't hold both at the same time. I need more hands than I have. Well, that's not going to fit. I got to find something else. I will be right back with something else. All right, I ended up putting some different clamps on there. I think now with that brace in there and plus the extra brace, a little bit of extra weight isn't going to do much. Once we get that back in there now, so in a few hours, once this has plenty of time to dry, that should be as solid as it's going to be. We're going to talking about back to factory spec and then some for this thing. So that's really good. We're really finally making some good progress with this thing, getting it back together. So we'll give this a few hours to dry, and we're back to moving on, making some progress. So this ended up setting for a little bit longer than I had initially intended. I kind of got in a groove working on this thing and was enjoying it, but I made me put off working on the other stuff that needs to be done. So I had to take a break and edit some video and get other stuff fixed. So I'm finally getting back to this. And I believe the next step is to fix the binding. I've got the heat gun out. That's what I think is going to need to happen here. Some of it might be coerced into working the right way without it, but I'm thinking it's going to need to happen. Just a little bit of heat to help push that back into round. So what I was planning on doing here was kind of sticking this leather underneath here to kind of protect the finish, and then running my heat gun on low, try to get that a little bit warm. Just that little bit of heat seemed to make it go back to its previously round shape. So, oh yeah, that's looking a lot better. So I'm gonna, before I lose control of that, I'm gonna put some glue in there. I'm using the canopy glue that I always use for plastic to wood. It works really good for that. I need something little to press that down in there, which if I use the other one of those means I can't do both sides at the same time, which is fine ultimately. Or maybe I can just move this one up. Yeah, that's gonna do it. All right, so that's looking pretty good. I'll see if I can't do this side now. I don't think I'm going to be able to get that up, so I'm going to have to be really careful with the heat here. All right, so that's looking good, actually. I'm hoping that turns out just like I want it to. We'll give that some time to cool off and dry, and then hopefully we can move on. Well, while all the plastics are drying, I figured I'd start doing something productive while I have to wait. And the frets are a little out of level, so I'm going to go ahead and just touch them up. They're not super bad. They really need more polishing than anything, but there's just a couple of high frets and a couple of worn spots we're going to try to work out. All right, that's probably good enough. What we'll do now is go through and crown them. So take my crowning file, just run through and make sure they got a nice crown to them. They're not flat on top.
So with that done, I'll take a piece of 600 or sandpaper, and I'll start with that. Now we'll just start taking all the file marks out. I'm not worried about the board, it's going to need cleaned up anyway. Next I'll take a piece of 1200 and really start polishing those frets. And after that, we'll start with the polishing pads. This is just 5 or 6 polishing pads that I run through, and they're basically just the same thing as sandpaper. They just go higher and higher in grit. Then I go through all 6 of those and get a real nice polish. So I'll get that done, and then we'll start cleaning the board. Once I got all those frets nice and polished, I'm taking my single edge razor blade and just scraping across these frets. Now, this serves 2 purposes for this guitar. One, it's cleaning up the board. It was very dirty beforehand. It's also kind of resurfacing the board. There are some pretty big grooves in these first couple of frets, and just this little bit of shaving off the top helps smooth it out quite a bit. So that's a lot better already. We're looking a lot better. I have to turn this a little bit because it's a lot easier to work my way like down the board than it is to work across the board. It's easier to get behind it. It's got a very rosewoody smell. I think you can see that there. So all the way up to here is a lot cleaner. It's smoother than beyond. It really does clean it up pretty nice. Alright, so we got that board cleaned off nice and smooth. Now what we'll do is we'll apply a little bit of oil. I'm just going to use this Be Good wood oil. And then just rub that in there. Alright, then I'll rub off some of the excess. And that is looking a lot better. That gives that wood a nice dark color, but it's very smooth because we scraped it clean. It's looking really good. So this sat up overnight, waiting for all this stuff to dry, and now I think we are actually ready to start stringing this thing up. It's looking really pretty good. I'm quite happy with it. I needed to get one more pin for this. For the bridge, it was missing one pin, and I'm actually having a hard time finding it because it matches fairly well. It's actually this one. These are the other two. I don't think you'll be able to tell the difference. They're all black, and they're about the same size, so we're doing pretty good. All I need to do now is get some strings, and we can start stringing this thing up so we can start working on a setup. So, I got this thing tuned all the way up here, or close enough to check the action anyway, and I've already done this once, but it's just a little high. Like 110 thousandths, 100 barely above that. And then this one, it's about 95 thousandths of an inch. So, you know, I'd like that to be about 80 and about 90. So it's just a little high. We're talking, you know, about 15 thou off each side. So that's about 30 thousandths off the saddle. The problem I'm having is that the saddle was kind of stuck in there. So I've got to try to get that out of there. So I got to loosen these strings up again, which I'll go ahead and do. And then we'll see about what we can do to get that saddle out of there. So I've got this all pulled apart. I've got a piece of tape on here to hopefully protect the saddle as much as I can. And I just got the pliers to just see. It's finally coming out, but I really had to pull on that. Let's see. Did I think somebody glued this down? It's entirely possible that this had some glue in there. It's a pretty shallow slot, really. I wonder if that had something to do with it. Anyway, I'm going to take 30 thou off of this saddle, and then hopefully we can get putting this thing back together again. I'll mark it up real quick so we can see it. So what I'll do is put a little Sharpie on each side. Open my calipers up to 30 thousandths. Make sure they're zeroed. All right, so my calipers are set at 30 thousandths of an inch. You can see there. And then I put one edge on the bottom of the saddle and just slide it across, and it makes a little line. This is a nice bone saddle, I'm fairly certain. So I just got to go to the disc center, knock a tiny amount off it there, and we're ready to set this thing back up. All right, so I just got this thing tuned back up. So let's check here. Oh, I set like right at 90 thousandths, if not just a hair lower, which is perfect. And that's right under 80 thousandths. That's awesome. This thing, maybe a hair out of tune, but I'll fix that up. I think we're done here. I get this tuned back up. I think we're ready to play it and send this thing on its way. Cool. I'm really happy with this. I think this thing turned out really good. All in all, I think if somebody was playing it, you may not even know that it was ever broke. The fact that it's playing good is huge for this, considering how broken it was. So I guess I'll get this tuned up, play it, and we'll be done. Well, I think this thing is playing really good. I got it tuned to open G right now, because I was playing around on it, and I really thought that this is where it was really sounding good. this thing has come a long way for a really short amount of time, really. The action is totally right where it needs to be. You know, it's really, really playable, really, really enjoyable, and, you know, I think from this point, you can not really tell that it was ever broken, but it does look like the age that it is. You know, a guitar from 1958. So I hope you enjoyed watching this work on this old Gibson. I think we're just about ready to pack this thing up and send it back home. So I'll get to it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.